The views and opinions expressed on More Peace, Please are those of the host and her guest. The information presented is strictly for general information purposes only.
I think a lot of times we get married to, I need to make a certain amount of money to be sustainable. But if you remove that, then what do you need to do? What do you need to do for yourself? Knowing that you yourself, your brand is always marketable, understanding that means that you'll always be able to make money.
Welcome to More Peace, Please, because sometimes we just have to ask for more peace. Please. On this podcast, my guests and I will discuss different ways to access peace, while also acknowledging how difficult peace can be to obtain and maintain. I am your host, Dominique Davis, also known as Brown and Bindi, trauma-informed yoga teacher and practitioner, weekend musician, and content creator. Welcome to my little corner of the internet. We're all friends here, so kick off your shoes, relax your feet, and let's just see if we can ask for a little more peace. Please. Hello, friends. Welcome to episode 12 of More Peace, Please. We have one more episode until our season finale. Truly insane. What a journey. It is an absolute pleasure to be here with you, and I do hope that you're having an all right week. I am recording this episode on the 4th of July, a day that represents freedom. And even though it represents freedom, it also historically represents becoming a holiday while the transatlantic slave trade was still in practice. This evening, the 47th President of the United States will be signing a bill that will disenfranchise those who are already struggling, choosing to actively stab those who are already bleeding. So, as Frederick Douglass inquired, what to a slave is the 4th of July? As Americans, we are free from the shackles of slavery, yes, but the dollar, capitalism itself, is an elusive master, using legislative binds instead of whips and chains. So that's how I'm doing. I am praying a lot. I spoke to God before I recorded, and this is when we lighten up the mood. Briefly, I just want to tell you a simple truth. Your life is yours. Your joy is yours. It doesn't matter who does what or who says what. You have freedom by way of your mind and your free will. Don't ever let anyone make you feel helpless or apathetic to your own existence. You are not a slave. So, with all of this being said, how do we maintain a sense of autonomy? How do we maintain optimism and joy in these times? How can we find the strength to love ourselves enough to live despite the endless tragedy that is taking place inside of our own lives and inside of the lives of our fellow humans? How do we ask for more peace? Please. The answer is the same as it's always been: positivity. Finding the good within the bad, even when it feels impossible. I also just want to be honest with you. I am not ready to be positive. I'm not ready to try to search for the good feeling because I am still in mourning. The legislation that has been passed and the actions of the government over the past several months will take years to reverse. The faith required to believe that we will have the opportunity to turn things around is for a whole other podcast. But I acknowledge that I cannot stay in this place of anger. I cannot continue to allow myself to detach, because if I do, the downward spiral will keep digging me into an emotional state that takes me further and further from the truth of who I am. As humans, we were created to love and to show compassion. It is scientifically proven that those who live in communities and consistently foster loving relationships live longer and happier lives. We were all made to look out for each other and to hold each other up. Detachment is cutting off my supply, and I just can't allow that to happen. So when I am ready, and maybe a little bit before I am ready, I will allow myself to indulge in the gift that is positivity. Laying in the sun and looking at the clouds, enjoying full belly laughs with my friends and my loved ones, making out with my husband like we have no responsibilities and nothing else to do. counting every single blessing and allowing those moments to feel like they are all that matter. Positivity is so powerful because it is replenishing. It fills your cup and offers momentum to be the change that the world needs to see so badly. Humans will always be selfish and scared because negativity is easier to embody. But real positivity, positivity that is aware of the darkness, aware of the conflict, aware of the pain, and still finds way to the surface. Positivity will always be infinitely stronger than negativity. Your light shines so much brighter than the darkness that these politics emit. If this podcast inspires you to do anything, I hope that it inspires you to shine. Charge your batteries so that you can brighten every room that you walk into and change your timeline as well as the timeline of those around you. This administration has failed the American people, but we can still find peace within the mess. Let's get back to my conversation with Kacee King. Here is part 2 of finding peace in failure.
I think it's important for the girls to know that failure is okay. And I think it's also important that they understand that creating the space that you need to grieve is monumental. It's not even monumental, it's paramount in your healing. If you think that you can just tuck that away and keep it moving, it will just resurface. It'll show up later on. It'll show up in a different area of your life. So if you fail, let's just say you feel like you failed in your career and you are not appropriately mourning the death of your career, it will resurface in your relationships. Mm-hmm. Right. And vice versa. If you had a terrible breakup and a horrible relationship and you just got up and started going to work and I'm pouring myself into my career and I'm feet to the ground, it's going to show up at work. Mm-hmm. So I think it's so important that you take that, you acknowledge it, you create space for it, but you don't pack up and live there.
Yeah.
I remember, my God, 20s again, 20s, living my life, my best bald head life. You know, I was a menace. Went through this really like nasty, horrible breakup, right? It was nasty. And I probably sat on my couch listening to Adele and eating ice cream every night after work for like 2 weeks, like a strong 2 weeks, just every day after work, eating ice cream.
Strong, all that.
Girl.
Yeah.
Strung out, like, you know what I'm saying? And I say it all the time, like, I don't even know how I kept my job at that point. I just think that whoever I was working with, I just think that they were like, let me just give this girl some grace. Because I was showing up to work with bags under my eyes, just a hot mess. Anyway, and so one day I literally just woke up after my 2-week period and I was like, he's a bum. And I really just had to come to the realization, like, you're still her. And so like I said, I poured myself into my career and I work, and I built myself up. And I went from, I think I was like a part-time teller at that time, to an assistant manager, to a branch manager, to commercial lending. And then I woke up one day in my house that I had paid for with my car and all my vacations I was taking and my $10,000 this and my that. And I felt lonely. I felt lonely. I had nothing. I didn't take the time to properly grieve this relationship, and every situation then that's what I'm gonna call it, that I had thereafter was detrimental to the girl who never grieved that failure. That was it. I didn't create the space for her. I didn't allow her to grieve. I didn't allow her to feel the things she needed to feel. I just had to pack it up and move. And so I say all of that to say, understand that your plans are just that. They're your plans. And God has a funny way of showing us that our plans are nothing in comparison to his plan. And I know that you're not going to immediately submit to that. I know, I get it, girl. You are going to go through your own way and figure things out, no matter how many of your aunties, and we're aunties, we're here now. We're telling you, girl. So I know you're still going to have to figure it out yourself. I get it. But in that space, just realizing that your plans are pale in comparison to his. That's 1. 2, create the space that you need to grieve. That's 3. 2. And then 3 would be realizing that just because you failed at that moment doesn't mean you have failed. Mm-hmm. It means that you now have the tools appropriate and necessary to succeed in your next venture, should you decide to pick up and keep it moving. That's what I think. And I'm going to sip on that because that was that.
No, that last one, just because you failed, it doesn't mean that you failed. You now have the tools. So Kacee has been walking beside me as I applied to go to grad school. Kacee actually wrote one of my recommendation letters. Yeah.
Look at me go.
Like,
with no AI, might I add.
With no AI.
With no AI.
Well, now I'm suspicious. No.
No tea, no shade to AI. I'm just saying.
So Kacee, she has seen me from the moment I was like, it's time for me to apply to I'm really doing this, like XYZ. And I applied and I was so excited. I waited for about 4 weeks to find out whether I got into my program or not. And during the process of waiting, I decided that I was going to stop smoking and that I was going to stop drinking. Drinking's not a problem for me. Kacee knows. Me and my body.
Girl, that's the story for another time.
I don't. Drinking is not like something that I have to try to not do. But smoking was something I did medicinally almost on a daily basis. And I think the longest that I'd gone fasting from smoking before that point was probably like 2 months. And that was since being 16. So while I was waiting to get into school, I had this idea of the type of therapist I want to be, the type of student I want to be. And I was like, I'm just going to stop smoking. That's not who I want to be as a therapist, blah, blah, blah. I didn't realize this. None of this is any shade to anyone who smokes. Look, if I was not in the career path, I can't even tell you what I'd be doing right now. But I'm just being real. But that being said, I heard God speak to me and he was just like, hey, Shadi, it's time. It's time. I know we've had some good times with this here plant, but it's time. And I was like, okay. So at the end of the 4 weeks, I get a letter and it says, hey, the program is full. We are going to defer your application to next year. And my heart was broken. I cried some tears.
Yeah.
But I sat in that sad place for about a day, maybe 2 days. And then I was like, you know what? I'm just going to continue preparing myself for this. I know this is not a no. I know that I'm going to be able to do this. I don't know what it's going to look like, but I'm not giving up. So because this was a deferring my application. This was not even a guarantee that I would get in next year. But nevertheless, I was like, okay, I'm still not going to smoke. And I'm going to apply to become a substitute teacher because I feel like that will put me in alignment with what I want to do.
Yeah.
So I do the application to be a sub. Little did I know. I didn't put two and two together, but you have to do a drug test to be a substitute teacher. And I was like, oh, look who's prepared, me. So I know, right? So I did my drug test, got the job, started substitute teaching, now getting real hands-on experience working with the demographic that I would like to administer therapy to. And I was just like, okay, I can do this and whatever. Just living my life. Literally at the school during the kids' lunch break in the classroom, get on my phone, acceptance letter to this year for my graduate program. I literally started classes 3 weeks ago.
Yes.
Started classes 3 weeks ago.
Yes.
So when the world tells you that you failed.
Yes. When God is like, here you go, my daughter. Yes.
I can barely articulate it. And I don't usually struggle with articulating things, but
No, girl, not at all. Nope.
What? Like what? Yeah. So big on that. Just because you failed does not mean that you failed. And if I could interject my own advice, if God told you that he was going to do something for you, but you have to hold up your end of the bargain in some way. Yeah. I'm not saying it's smoking. It might be something else. But if you have to hold up your end of the bargain in some way, the second that things don't look the way that you think they should look, don't go back to doing the thing.
Don't go back to doing the thing.
Don't go back to doing the thing.
Don't go back to doing the thing. I know in our great book it says faith without works is dead. And I think a lot of times we feel like when God gives us the plan or he tells us this is it, we feel like that's it. Like we don't have to show up and we don't have to work. That's not how it works. Let's just envision you were gifted with $1 million tomorrow, right? And that's great. That's amazing. That $1 million in this economy is not going to last you. So how are you going to make that work?
Yeah.
And that's with anything. Whatever you are gifted on today, what do you have to do? What part of you? Because there's always going to be, and I don't even want to call it a barter, but there is something that you're going to have to give up from your old life in order to step into your new life. I say it all the time. We are one small decision away from a completely different life. But whatever that life looks like, however you want it to be, and if that one small step is waking up 30 minutes earlier.
Right.
There is something that you're going to have to give up from your old life, and you can't have your feet in two places at once.
Can't do this.
You have to give up something from this old life in order to get into this new one. I mean, so again, to the girls, whatever it is that you and God talked about, and whatever it is you decided you're giving up, the moment that it doesn't work out in that moment, don't go back to the thing in the man. Don't go back to that.
Please don't go back to the man, because he did not deserve.
Don't go back to the man.
He did not deserve you in the first place.
He did not deserve you.
Oh my God.
Don't let Ashanti and Nelly have you spinning a block, child. Anyway.
They are the exception, okay?
No, they are so cute. They are the exception to the rule. They are.
You are not Ashanti.
But everybody else, don't go back to that man.
Actually,
get a new one.
Another side note, Nelly's on tour with Ja Rule and Eve. So we should talk about that after.
We should absolutely talk about that, because you know how I feel about Eve. I listened to her audio, because I'm an Audible fan. You've got to listen to or read her book.
When did it come?
No, you have to. Yeah. I think earlier this year. I'll send you a link. Baby.
Eve is just living her best life.
And what I love so much about the book is Eve. She's very transparent. She's very honest. She talks about those early days with Sleazy J and the strip club and the whole thing. And she's also very transparent about her life now and how it feels to be in a space where she is the only Black woman, even in her own, like in her own family. So it's
consistently. Yeah.
Oh my God. It's yeah. Gotta read it.
No, that's something that I struggle with, not necessarily in my family, but just like a lot of the different spaces I find myself in. I'm consistently the only Black person. So yeah. That made my ears tingle. I will. Yeah. I'll look into that after the podcast. Okay.
You should.
So, okay, I have a few more questions.
Okay.
I'll talk to you forever, you know that. But you work with a lot of young adults. What is a common misconception about career building that you feel compromises their peace? In what ways do you think young adults can benefit from familiarizing themselves with failure? If you need me to repeat any of that, I'm happy to.
No, I think I'm good. So the first thing I think that we need to recognize as millennials is that I think we had the experience of Gen Xers, and that with their careers, they were very career focused, right? They were very much get a job, work hard, stay there, climb the ladder, and you are committed to that. Right. And I think a lot of us struggled with that, especially like you and I, who were very much mompreneurs and were like, I'm not tied to any or committed to any corporation. Right. I'm going to do what I need to do, but I'm still going to put my family and myself at the forefront of that. And for our parents, I know that was like, what? Because I remember when I left my job and sold my house, both of my parents were like, are you having not even a midlife crisis, but what's wrong with you? Like, you have this good job. You've been there for 10, 11 years. You just sell your house to be what? So I think it's understanding for the youth. They don't necessarily have that commitment or the need to commit to a corporation or to a thing or to a career. So I think that's the first thing we need to understand when we're talking about the youth and their career paths, is that instant gratification, this microwave pop culture makes us feel like we have to be our best selves and earn six figures with our very first job. Right. I think for our youth, it's empowering them to have great skills to be able to be a great person who will manage their own corporation, their brand themselves. Right. The thing that I impress upon my students is that you are a brand. You are a walking, talking brand. You're responsible for marketing, for advertising, for sales, for year-over-year growth. That is your responsibility. And the moment we realize that our gifts are innately tied to who we are and what we are destined to do in this world, we learn that we can do that anywhere. You can do that at McDonald's. You can do that at Lowe's. You can do that as a social media influencer. You can do that anywhere. So I think it's helping our kids to understand you will hear a lot of no's before you hear a yes. And do not personally attach your self-worth to any of those no's. None of them. That is what I try to impress upon them. And it's okay that you don't have it figured out. You're not supposed to. I don't care what culture tells you. I don't care what college tells you. If everybody had it figured out, we wouldn't need to go to a 4-year college, or we would need to go to a 5-year. We wouldn't need these things if we knew. The college experience is about so much more than the intellectual or the philosophical piece, right? If we took all the theories that we learned from our textbooks and had no idea how to actually execute upon them, we'd all be walking around as just philosophers with all these thoughts and concepts. We'd have concepts of what life should be like, right? So it's helping our kids to understand that, again, that the consistent, constant theme is failure. You're going to fail. You're going to get fired. You will experience a layoff because the company will downsize. You will have somebody will come in and buy the company. You won't have adequate notice. You'll have to pack up your cubicle and go. Things will happen, and you will need to always have an innate center of self and awareness of self to be able to pick that up and say, okay, my time here is up. Everything has an expiration date. This was cute. This was fun. This paid my bills while it lasted. But what are the skills that are transferable that I can take from this role and put it into the next, or even in my in-between role while I'm figuring out what's next, right? Like you and I both have that substitute experience, right? I became a substitute teacher right after I left my corporate world and my corporate job. And that segues into so many things. And I think it really opens your eyes to where you see yourself and how you see yourself when you're subbing. So I think that's the very long answer to what to tell the kids. Help them understand that failing in your career is absolutely important, and that being married to a career or a corporation is probably not feasible. And I think when we look at statistics now, the average time spent at a job is no more than 2 years. And I think that's just very realistic. I think a lot of our Gen Ys, and what are they? Gen Zs. I don't know the kids, the chaps. I don't know who they are.
The babes.
But the babies. I think they are much more self-aware in the sense that when they go into a corporation, they realize this is a two-way interview. You're not about to ask me a bunch of questions about my life, and I'm not going to make sure that you're not socially aware, or your social involvement doesn't align with my purposes, right? I think our kids are much better at verbalizing what they want, what they expect, and then making sure that it's in alignment with what they want to do. Who was that? I think Microsoft just built a huge campus in Orlando, if I'm not mistaken. I know it's some part of Florida, but they just built a huge campus in Florida because the chaps, the jits that they were hiring were like, yeah, this little 6 figures is cool, but we want to go to the beach. Like, you're not about to work me to death and have me stressed out and hairlines receding and heart palpitations and stress and all these things. You're not doing that to me. So unless you get over here on this beach, I'm not coming over here with all of my, all of my intellectual property and all of the intelligence that you need to run this company. So I think our kids have a really great understanding of self, that they're able to negotiate their value and help some of our older folks understand that. But I also think it's important for them to know that your entire identity is not wrapped up in whatever your title is at this moment. That can all change.
Girl, you touched on so many good things. I think the main things I would like to take away from that are staying at a company for too long, idolatry. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's idolatry. Believing the source of your joy and your peace and your security comes from a job and not the gifts and blessings that God put on your life. That's idolatry.
That's so good.
And the ability to navigate, like, see that it's time for you to walk away from a job. I think that ties back to what we were talking about at the beginning of this podcast, where it's like, your peace has to come from God. Your peace has to come from a knowing that there's something bigger that is walking with you from this job to the next. It is not a job that has given you a sense of security. Another thing that Christianity really taught, I'm so sorry if you guys can hear this in the background. AJ's birthday is tomorrow, and my husband is putting so much stuff together, and I just, can you hear it?
I can't hear it, girl, because they're back over here cutting grass. So I don't know if y'all can hear that.
Perfect. But yeah, just remembering one of the main things that I took away from Christianity when I first started reading the Bible was that a
Mm,
lot of people think that idolatry is getting on your knees and bowing to a god
mm,
of a
mhm,
different name and like
mhm,
this
mhm,
very conscious thing. And
mm,
idolatry is subconscious, Shadi. It is
mhm.
subconscious.
And it's
Like
very subtle too. It's very
like the
subtle.
God you choose to worship is the God you consciously choose to worship. But
Mm,
idolatry is, and that could still be idolatry, I guess. But idolatry, the way I understand it, is giving your will, giving your trust, giving yourself
mm,
over to
mhm,
something else,
mhm,
whether it's
mhm.
conscious or not. And we
Right.
are doing that with these jobs.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I am one of the girls. I've never been one of those people that have given myself fully to a job. I
Yeah.
always have one foot out the door, unfortunately. Unless
No, no, no. That's not unfortunate. That's very, very fortunate. And that is the way, like that is the way that we should approach jobs. I don't care what you say.
mm,
I don't. Because I was one of those girls. I was a company girl. I
yeah.
was a company girl for one company in particular that I worked for 11 years.
Wow.
That was my entire early adulthood. My identity was completely engrossed in that company. And it's so interesting because I too did not realize that that was idolatry, right?
Mhm.
It wasn't until what 5 years later when I was at that other job, and it was the same line of work, right? But was at that other job and finally left there and started on my walk with God that idolatry became such a big focus to me. So
Mhm.
when you said that, it just hit the nail on the head because that was it. I did not realize the comfort that I thought that I had, the peace that I thought that I had, the financial stability that I thought that I had, all the things that I thought that I had, I thought they were tied up in this job. And yes, I was thankful that God gave me the job. And yes, I was thankful that God gave me the raise and the bonuses and this and that. But I still could not make the connection to the fact that I was idolizing this job.
Yes.
I was sacrificing my time, my sleep, my energy, myself
Mm,
for this job,
mm.
dragging myself in there. I remember my mother, God bless her, was diagnosed with cancer
Oh,
in see, here you go.
can I
was
get
diagnosed was diagnosed with cancer in like
love you.
20
Love you.
I forgot what year it was, but anyway, it was at a time where I was working at this job, and so she was placed into this treatment that was only available at Yale New Haven Hospital on Tuesdays. And if any of you are familiar with how that goes when you are going through chemo, it's not like you just pop into the doctor and come
Mhm.
out kind of thing, right? So there is preparation for it, like the whole Monday before. And because of the type of cancer that she had, we had to prep the bathroom and kind of bleach things and like get everything ready. And then Tuesday was the day you spend all day with that. And then so Tuesday was the only day that I had off. And so even after taking her and doing all the things and getting her food and, then she's sick afterwards, I had to go to work on Monday. I had to go to work on Wednesday. I had to go to work on Tuesday. I mean, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I had to pick up Saturday and I had to work Sunday in order to have that one day off, right? So this job was like, yeah, it's cool. We're gonna give you time for whatever, but you got to make it up on the back end.
Right.
And if I could look back on that, like if the person I am today wouldn't even take that for an option. So having one foot out the door is the posture that you need to have. You need to know that you need me to do this job. I don't need you to do this job. And you also need to know that chasing the money won't get you rich. I know you and I have talked about this
Yes.
on all ends. And that's what I
Every
thought
other
it was.
day.
Like,
Every other day.
I gotta have this money. I gotta make this money. I gotta make this money. Chasing the money is not gonna make you rich. You chase the dream, you chase the passion, you chase what excites your soul, you chase what God has lit in your heart, and the money comes. Mm.
I think that it's a blessing that I have this very crazy sensitive body that does
Mm.
that does not like anything, because I
Mm-hmm.
will say that all the autoimmune stuff I've been through and all of
Mm-hmm.
the sensitivity, that before I knew Christ, it was my body and my health that made me say, it was my health was always a barrier to, I can't give you all this. I can't give a job.
Mm.
But hearing you say how hard that you were going for your job and then on your one day off, still caring and nurturing and providing for another person, a person who does not have an autoimmune response of their body saying, you need to stop, like,
Mm-hmm.
when do you learn to tell yourself I'm doing too much? If your body eventually will tell you, but
Right.
you don't have like that immediate, like, hey, we're running on fumes. Like, how do you stop?
Right. God stops you.
Yeah, always.
Stops you dead in your tracks.
Always.
Dead in your tracks. Like something always happens where he's like, you were not listening to me. I gave you the green, I gave you the yellow light. I finally gave you a stop sign.
Yeah.
And now it's a straight up red light.
Yeah.
He will stop you dead in your tracks and make you reevaluate everything that you are doing in
That's
the
what
way
it
that you're doing
is. It's a
it. Because that's what
reevaluation.
it is. You gotta reevaluate it.
Because I think about
Yeah.
so many people that I've known who I don't know how they're sustaining with the rate that they are going. There is no
They're not.
rest,
They're not
no
sustaining.
self-care.
Mm-mm.
And for what? For why? For money? And I say that in a very privileged way. I want to be aware. I am saying that from a privileged place.
Yeah.
We have to work to pay our bills. We
Yeah.
have to work to get out of survival. I say that from a privileged place. But
Yeah.
the level of what we are willing to sacrifice, I think we should always be evaluating what we're sacrificing and for what. Last question. Oh, I'm so sad. Okay. What are you working on now? And what plans are you making?
Oh, everything. I literally am working on everything. So segue. So literally what I was saying earlier about, chasing the passion and the vision and letting the money follow, right? I think we talked about this during one of our mini dissertations in Phoenix, right? But going into this summer, so right, I'm an educator. I almost want to say primarily, but I have many other things that go on, right? And so part of being an educator is you have the summers off, right? But having the summers off means that there's a halt in your income. And I think initially I was so afraid of, I'm a weekly earner, right? I'm like, you gotta have some money, you gotta have some income coming in. But becoming an educator in and of itself stops that because you are paid on a monthly basis. When you're a sub, you're paid weekly, right? So you've got that dopamine hit that weekly, you got a direct deposit hitting. I have a million other little side jobs going. So it's like something's always coming in. I don't care if it's $25, something's coming in. But when you get to that space and it's a hard stop, it's figuring out how to sustain your passion. But then also being realistic about like, what do I need monetarily to take care of my life and have a child and a mother? And these, people depend on me. So the first thing that I did, and again, we talked about this in Phoenix, but I planned quarterly, right? So first quarter of last year, first fiscal quarter of last year, I took all my money that I earned from my other job as a realtor and I banked it because I said, I need to have the summer off. Like I need that. I need that for my creativity. I need that for energetically. I need to reset. I need to realign and I need to decide if this is where I'm going to continue pouring investing my energy and efforts into going forward. So what I'm working on now is the second half of that. Like, what does that look like while I'm in this space, right? And I don't want to get caught up in making the most of it and working and It's really about what does that look like, right? So it looks like creating value that is transferable into what makes sense, makes dollars. So what does that mean? I think a lot of times we get married to, I need to make a certain amount of money to be sustainable. But if you remove that, then what do you need to do? What do you need to do for yourself? So knowing that you yourself, your brand is always marketable, understanding that means that you'll always be able to make money, whatever that looks like. And I think that's the space that I'm living in right now, is planning for that, planning for whatever I'm doing, I'm going to make some money. It might not be a whole lot right at this moment, but I'm going to make some money, right? I'm going to make something shake. So I'm definitely working on that. So with that said, shameless plug, I have a first time homebuyer seminar coming up. And I think that they will be quarterly. I think that I'm going to go ahead and make them quarterly. And they may not always be first-time home buyers. It may be, investors next month. It may be, I don't know, it may be commercial next month. I don't know, but I'm going to work on those because I want to make sure that we are clear on what happens in an economic downturn and how we can actually sustain and build wealth in an economic downturn. So that's first and foremost. Second is spending time with my family, like being present and really learning how to spend time. I think so much throughout the year, you get so busy and you're moving and you're doing the things that you don't really sit down and spend time with your family and talk to your kids and let them tell you off about how you rushed them this morning if they didn't like it, right? But growing from that as a mom, like, listen, there's no instructions on this mom thing. We just like pick it up and we run with it. So there's that. And then child, I got a man, y'all. And so I be in his face, girl, like as much as I can. So yeah, so that's my life. I'm super excited. There's so many things happening. Learning how to let go has been paramount to my own healing and just kind of picking up where I need to be. So that's it, child. Make some money. I'm gonna get some rest. I'm gonna live in my man skin, and I'm gonna let my daughter tell me off.
I love it.
Let my daughter tell me off every chance she get, and be with my friends because, girl, these voice memos and text messages, and we have listen. No, not only are we texting each other, but then we're on the internet sending each other memes, and then we bring it back to the conversation. And then there's a 2-minute voice note, and then there's a 25-minute one that we have for later. And if I don't have that in my life, I don't feel loved.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm just saying.
If my phone is dry, I'm like, where have I dropped the ball?
What is happening with me? Where are my friends? Why don't I have any memes? Why don't I have any pictures? What's happening today?
Have I been distant? What can I do? Absolutely. Now, I want to go back to what you were saying about seminars. Do you have plans to offer virtual offerings?
Yeah, no, I do. So one of my mortgage lenders is in South Carolina, and he's licensed in all 50 states. So I just want to preface it with that. He offers a lot of virtual options. So we will do some virtual seminars as well, just so that everybody can have it at a time that's available and convenient to them. And it makes the most sense. I actually think the one of them in August will be virtual.
Okay, great. So for everyone listening who may be manifesting and who may be setting the vision of buying a home and setting the vision of increasing personal wealth, remember, manifesting through spiritual practices is always fun and dandy, but sometimes we have to take physical steps. We have to learn the things. We have to learn the things. We got to do the adult stuff. So if you see a home in your vision, if you know increasing your wealth is something that is important to you, give my girl a follow, keep up with her, and look out for those virtual offerings if you are not in North Carolina. And that being said, can you give us your Instagram?
Sure. So it is at @ crown with a K, me king _ So crown with a K, me king _ at the front and at the back.
And is there anywhere else you would like to be found?
Oh, you can go to my website and that will give you all the things. It will give you all your financial things. It'll give you what's credit. It'll give you real estate. It'll give you notary, all the things. If you want to be in my business, girl, go there, crownmeking.com. You want to see what I'm talking about, what I'm yapping about today, crownmeking.com. And that's crowned with a K.
That part. Oh, Kacee, my girl, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today.
Thank you for thinking of me, babe.
Yeah, you're the best. All right, I'm going to stop recording so that we can continue yapping about things that these people don't need to hear. All right,
okay,
perfect. See you next time.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of More Peace, Please. I do hope that you enjoyed it. Want to keep up with me? Well, that's a coincidence. I want to keep up with you too, boo. Best way to stay in the know is to follow me on Substack at Brown and Bindi. You can find me under the same handle on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and Snapchat. Until next time, remember to seek more peace, please.